Welcome to another session of HeartTalk. I'm Marion Nicole, and with me, of course, is Dr. Granville D'Souza. We
Very
are the
much. Good evening,
founders.
everyone.
We're the founders of EQ Asia. Okay, I keep saying EQ Asia. We rebranded, as you all know. We are now known as EQ World. All right. As before, we train and we coach people in emotional intelligence, as well as using the Enneagram personality profile, where we are able to bring about transformation to the individuals who go through our programs and bring about breakthrough results. So, what is our topic today, Granville?
Well, our topic. Oh my golly,
Oh my goodness.
I may have to pause
Muted.
something for like 5 seconds, And so, Marion, keep on rattling for 5 seconds because I better.
You can't find your phone. Okay. All right. So our topic today is called the turning point,
That's right.
right? And it's talking about family, how to bring up a healthy family, right? Stemming from parents, stemming from the way we manage our children in terms of the words, the behaviors, right? The kind of actions that we have, right? And of course, me being a parent, I guess I have to confess my sins, but I'm sure I will learn a lot from this session.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. You gave a perfect introduction. In fact, you took the words out of my mouth. Now I don't have much to say about the intro at all. But I guess I still have to say a little bit more about this. So today is called the turning point, as you mentioned, and all of us will have different turning points, right? You have a turning point, I have a turning point, but we are giving a little bit of a twist, especially because the topic is really about parents and how parents can make the difference, the big difference in terms of how we turn up or turn out in the end, or they can sometimes really damage it for a lot of kids, which I've also seen, right? I mean, the classes that you do and the classes that I do, very often business people talk about their kids or they talk about their upbringing in terms of who they've become as a result of what they've gone through with their parents.
Exactly.
So I think this is a topic which all of us can identify with because all of us have got parents, and some of us would have had a harder time, and some of us would have had a breeze of a time. Let's see.
Yes, of course. Exactly. And I thought that's why I would mention about the Enneagram, because when we do go into that profiling and understanding about your personality, many times the childhood hurts tend to come up in a lot of their sharing, and they feel like in so many ways that has molded them into what they become, right? So it's always a very interesting conversation. So I was pretty excited to hear, the topic for today and see what we'll be talking about. And of course, having our wonderful guest, right?
Oh,
SuperCoach Dave, who you have known for ever.
a long time. Let's see, 95, 93, 2003, 2000. Yeah, it's almost 30 years, right? Almost 30 years. So I sort
Yeah.
of know him inside out, and he knows the same. So let's see what happens. But while I want to start talking about him right now, because I'm pretty excited for him to share his turning point. Of course, he'll have at least more than half hour to share that. So let's
Yeah.
reserve that time for him and not spoil the fun
Sure.
and too
Of
much
course.
of a preview of Dave. But let's talk about us for a while because we've got just 20 minutes
Okay.
to squeeze that whatever we can about the two of us in 20 minutes and maybe a little summary at the end.
All
So
right. So let's turn the tables around and you start sharing first because you do that to me weekly and you want to
all right.
match my story. Nah, ain't happening this week,
Okay.
partner.
So then you might as well ask me the question because I don't know what you're going to find out.
Okay, so just tell me. I mean, one thing I know we have in common is we're both the youngest child. We are the third child in our families. You've
Yeah.
got two older siblings, so do I. And,
Yeah.
I think in that way we always connected because of the similarities that we have. So let's talk about growing up. I'll
Yeah.
have you sit on the couch and I'll be Dr. Phil now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had a ball of a time growing up, I must admit.
Yeah.
And some obviously we had different kinds of struggles, but I think I had a great time growing up because my parents, if you think about it, they sort of balanced it up really very well, whether they planned it, in terms of shall I be the tougher one, shall I be the nicer one, but it just turned out like that my mom was obviously a very, very strict person, but she did it in a very, very good way. Or sometimes I say that, but of course, when I was going through that, was a different story, right? Okay, so
Of
but that said,
course.
I'll talk about that later. So I had a good time growing up, and but when I was young, I think I always asked myself what I really needed from my childhood was a lot of freedom, and the advantage I had then was because both my parents would be working, and my dad would come back really very late, so I had all the freedom in the world. And I think what they did not know was because at home I was a very quiet, angel-like, angelic child, but actually outside I'll be experimenting with everything possible. So I think they still think I'm their angel, and I think I'll keep it that way, right? Yeah. Okay, keep it that
Well,
way.
did you invite them to watch the show? Then they can learn a little bit more about their darling son.
Actually, no, I should, because one is 19, one
Okay.
is 82, who keeps telling me,
Yeah, of course.
I must learn how
Mm.
to use Facebook, but I hear that every week for the past 3 years.
Okay. Well, I must say it does sound very familiar. I must say that I too am very blessed and very grateful for having been born into the family that I'm with. Same thing with mom and dad. There was a lot of balance there. They were really my role models for me in terms of becoming a parent also. So there was a little bit of difference. I think like a lot of other families, mom was the disciplinarian on a day-to-day basis, kind of keeping us in check on smaller issues, or I wouldn't say smaller issues, but the day-to-day issues. But when it came to big major issues, then dad would step in, and by then we'd all be scared shit, right? Because dad was the disciplinarian. Even, that was his job too, right? In the school, he was a discipline master and all that. So dad never really raised his voice, but when he did call us in, then we'd all be really afraid, So when you talk about freedom, it's like, oh my goodness, we're like twins, right? In that way, Gran, you and I, because freedom was something very important also. And I think being the third child, we probably got a lot more freedom than what I remember seeing my brother or sister go through. I
Yeah.
always felt mom and dad were a lot stricter with my sister being the older one. And of course, to my older brother being the only boy in the family. So I got away with a lot of, not going to expose that much, but I got away with a lot of things.
Well, I'll quote one good example for myself, and let's see if you can remember one. So, if my big brother is watching in Australia, which he might, I can't check for now, but he used to tell me, you've got it really easy, especially when I started going to discos when I was 16. But I started, obviously, when I go to discos, I'll come back at 11 p.m. and so forth. But there came a time when I reached probably 20 and I'll come back at 4 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And then I would try to sneak in. But, on occasions when my mom would wake up at about 4 a.m. to go maybe to the loo or something, and I'll go like, oh no. And she said, oh, what's up? Oh, 4 a.m. Huh? What are you doing? What are you doing till this hour? And I think, oh, that was easy. But my brother would have never had that kind of treatment being the first child. So
Yeah.
the first child obviously is about responsibility, making sure your second brother is okay, making sure your third brother is okay. But then, of
Yeah,
course, I guess being the first child, parents would want to be a lot more vigilant and
of
careful
course.
in terms of
Yeah.
what happens to that child and what kind of
Mm.
example you set
Yeah.
for the next two. So was
And I
that
must
quite?
say, yeah, I mean, I would say that that's something that I also observed. Definitely everything that you're saying, I agree with, in so many ways. And so when I became a parent, I mean, when it's your first child, it's like you don't know what to do. So you're ultra cautious because you want to just get it right and you don't want to damage the child, and especially with the kind of playful, irresponsible background that I came from in the past, it was tougher. But I always remember this, that as a parent, not that my parents made mistakes, but there were certain things that I just didn't want to do like what my parents did. So they were great learning for me that I would try my best to treat both sons equally, but it's exhausting and it's difficult to not be tougher on one than the other because different personalities. Then you kind of get into a relaxed mode a little bit with the second one, thinking, I've done it again already, so can relax a bit. Then I'm sure when it came to, like, I don't have a third one, but I'm sure with our parents, by the time you come to the third one, I was like, been there, done that. Let them go and eat mud and play with the worms and be in the drain and whatever, right? So I mean, for me, because my parents gave me a lot of freedom, and one of the things that they always said to me was, you know what, Marion, you do what you need to do, but you must be responsible for the consequences. We'll always be there to support you. We will love you. We will be angry with you, yes, but we will love you. We will support you, but you need to spread your own wings. So for me, that was like my mantra with my boys also, giving them a little bit of, or as much freedom as I could and relaxing on the control. Yeah.
So looking back at all those years, of course, it goes back maybe about 25 years ago for you. Again, we play with our age. But okay, in short,
Thank you.
looking back
Yes.
at your childhood and the kind of treatment you had, how has that manifested into your adulthood? And yeah, has it made a difference? Or do you feel like, I don't know, I just became who I became? But do you feel there was something that happened in your childhood that allowed you to be who you are now?
I definitely feel that the trust that they gave me, the freedom that they gave me, the ability to allow me to explore without really forcing me. Of course, when I was much younger, I was forced into music lessons and piano lessons and ballet and all of these things I hated and I quit, right? But they still supported me and told me, you just do what you need to do. And I think that gave me that confidence to try new things. And again, I don't come from a family of business people. They're mainly educators. My parents were teachers, etc. So for me, having my own business, breaking out from the corporate world, that I believe gave me that head start, because they always gave me that confidence, knowing that I could do anything that I wanted to, but they would always be my safety net. Yeah.
So
what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm trying to think back, obviously, because
Okay.
I did all kinds of naughty things. At the same time, I was a pretty nice boy at home. Now, obviously, when I look back, because again, the kind of work we do, we always keep looking back, and I introspect a lot.
Of
Ask
course.
myself,
Yeah.
okay, what did my dad do to make me who I am? What did my mom do to make me who I am? Where did they change? Where did they adjust? So I talk a lot about them in class, if you can
Yeah.
recall, right?
Yeah, so do I.
And I do talk fondly about many things, but I don't regret. Okay, I'd like to talk about this part. So I did say that my mom was very strict, and she used all the I always tell her this, even on her 80th birthday. I did a speech, and I said, she used all the weapons of mass destruction on us. The cane, the belt, her palm on the face, and the legs on the kicking and so forth. But it wasn't like
Abuse. Yeah.
well, far from it, and of course,
Exactly.
and my mom's a singer, right? So as a
Yeah.
soprano, she was loud. So when she would shout, she was loud, and the whole neighborhood would be able to hear, and all the estate will wonder, like, who was that Pontianak last night, So Pontianak, for the rest who are from Cambodia and so forth, is a mythical ghost. That has got a shrieking voice. But so,
Yeah.
in short, with all that, what I wanted to say was this: I think it definitely prepared me for adulthood.
Yeah.
Like I can't even remember the day I cried in school. Now, not that was bad, but I think it prepared me also to be strong and to face
Yeah.
all. I could weather anything, and I was never afraid in school. So
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, it's tough love. I think our parents showed it in different ways. My dad gave us tough love too. He was tough on us, and because I was a playful, naughty, rebellious girl, he always reminded me that if you don't, stand up for yourself, if you don't, you'll be taken advantage of because you're giggly and you're playful, etc. So there was a lot of tough love, and I appreciate that, because having gone into the workforce and all that, it helped me stand up for myself and not be taken advantage of, right? Yeah. So I think in whatever our parents did, when we understand it comes from a place of love, right? The intention is I don't think any parent intentionally wants to be evil to their children. Sometimes circumstances change and it makes it tough. And like for me as a single mom, the circumstances changed. It became challenging, but it gave my boys so much opportunity to grow in so many other ways. And they became my pillars of strength. Imagine that, right? So, and I'm so proud to always talk about them. And I'm glad that I had the family that I have because they were the support system also.
Right. I just want to ask one more question because the time is like flying today.
I know, and we have to look at our chat group because I see a lot of shifting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Later, you ask your, yeah.
Yeah, because we are going to bring in Dave. I did tell him 8:15 to 8:20. So let's see, if we finish answering this question. So I got then one last question as a result of time, which is really flying
No
today.
problem.
So because the topic today is the turning point.
Turning point.
And it's about our parents as well. So I'm just wondering, I can ask you this question and let's see whether you want to buy time on this one. But when you look back at your parents, were they the cause of an interesting turning point in your life, right? Like what could they have done at some point in your life that really made you see things from a very interesting perspective that taught you so much about life? Any one of those turning points.
Okay.
Right. Do you want to start first or shall I start?
Okay, I mean, I can start, but for me, it's a lot of things. There's no one major event. There was many, many different events. But I must say, because if I can go as far back as possible, I would say that for me, because I was so playful and I really didn't like to study, and because my parents were teachers, I don't think they did this ever intentionally. Again, I don't even think they know about it. But I felt like they were more attentive to my brother and sister. My sister, because she was interested in the subjects that my dad was teaching, etc. And so it made me work a lot harder and become a better student. But that only happened when I was like 15 or 16, doing like O levels, right? So that was really the start to want to achieve more in order to get attention from my parents. So that's the one thing. But of course, there were a lot of others. And
Right.
I believe it's still happening. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll share two, one for each, right? I must be fair. One for my mom,
Okay.
one for my
Ooh, now
dad.
it make me feel bad.
No, no.
Sorry, Mama.
Okay. So of course, there's always time for you to add on one. I might as well share mine. So I'll talk about my dad first. And so I had a lot of trouble, and when I say in Singapore, especially in college, and there was one day when the teachers insisted, at least the principal insisted, that my dad had to come to school to sort out something which I will not obviously mention in public, right? But there was one where if he did not come, I would have been in really major trouble, like getting sacked and so forth. So he asked me what the problem was, and I shared with him what the problem was. And he looked at me, he said, "That cannot be, and I will not stand for whatever they're accusing you for." And I thought, oh my God, actually, I'm guilty. But anyway, put that aside. I was actually guilty in that situation. But, he came, and, being a lawyer, I must admit, he made them apologize to me, and I felt, oh my God, yes, right? And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? Anyway, don't tell your mother. Everything is over after today. Just be a good boy, and everything is fine." Like, he never reprimanded me. He never made me feel small. I can't remember a day when my dad made me feel small. So I think about,
Nice.
yeah, unquestionable support. Now that's coming from my dad, but my mom did the same. So one small little bit, when I decided to go on my own in business, and I was thinking about how do I tell them I'm so young and I haven't even started in the corporate world. Within 2 years, I want to get into business. So I thought my mom would say, no, you should stay another 2 years. And within 10 seconds of telling her I want to get into business, she said, "That's what you should do. And I'll be with you 100% of the way. Just go forth and live your life the way you want to." And I'm like, wow, never expected that. And, so both of them have been pillars of support right from the beginning,
Yeah.
which
Nice.
is, yeah. And I always look back and I think, wow, that made a real difference in my life.
Yeah.
I can do anything I want because of the level of support
Exactly.
and validation I got.
Exactly. So it's really that support system and allowing us to spread our wings. Again, you see, we could have been growing up in the same household. Okay, pause here, yeah? And let me just
Yeah.
quickly look at some of the comments here. All right, so Ming Kiang says, "Hi, Gran and Marion."
Ming Kiang, loyal supporter.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, Ming Kiang
all
from
right.
Cambodia.
And Gary, "Hi,
And
Gran, so good to
and
see
Gary,
you."
wow,
Yeah,
nice.
nice.
She's from the US and
Okay,
she's an Enneagram expert.
all right. And
Yeah.
we forgot to ask them questions today, but okay. Amrit, hi. Hey guys, super pumped for today. Great. Like to see you. Murali from the US. We've got Cambodia, we've got Malaysia, and we've got the US listening in. Excellent. Yeah, so that's wonderful.
That's
Mm.
great. Okay,
Okay,
so
because
yeah,
we didn't ask them any questions, but we should let Dave come in soon.
yeah. So maybe we will ask them a question and then we will get Dave to come in shortly. So again,
Okay.
the question we will
What's
ask
the
now,
turning point?
what's
Yeah.
your turning point, and could your parents have made that difference to you, in terms of your turning point? Could they have been involved in that turning point in your life? And because the topic is about parents and how they made a difference in your life. And
Yeah.
so we're about to bring in our guest today, right? Dave, he's waiting in the house. So do you want to introduce him or shall I do that?
Oh, you can. I'm so lazy. If you ask me a choice, I always give it to you.
I mean, today I think
Okay.
I'll introduce Dave since I've known Dave for
Okay. You've
28
known
years.
him for ages. I mean, he's such
Right.
a sweetheart. I would love to. So, but
That's
you
right.
go ahead.
Oh, no, if you love to, then carry on.
Don't waste time. Come on, go.
Okay, all right. So this super champ, so this is Super Dave, Super Coach Dave coming on from Super Champs, right? I don't want to tell his story, but what he's gone on to do is to set up this academy called Super Champs. And what he does is he trains kids from all around the region, and together with kids, not just kids and teens, and nurtures them about how to learn. But at the same time, he's gone on to help families come together as one powerful unit. And so I think everyone can identify with the kind of work he's doing. And I think the best thing is to admit him at the same time so that he can talk about this, at the same time share with us about his life. So good evening, Super Coach Dave.
Super Coach Dave.
Hey,
Looking
what a
so
start.
sharp.
Very suave. By now I feel a bit underdressed after looking at him. Okay, but good evening. How are you doing, Dave?
Hey, Gran. Hey, Marion. Don't worry, Marion. I will not hold you, not introducing me against you. You're,
I'll do the closing, my
but,
dear.
but honestly, yeah, I think you have done a fantastic job introducing me. I was very nervous about Granville. I was thinking, oh my goodness, which story is he going to use? But
Exactly.
thank you for your diplomacy.
Yeah. Because I mean,
No,
I
we
think
leave that to you.
one of the things we can start off with is Dave, do you want to share how we met? And then maybe we'll know why he was a bit scared about the introduction, but we don't have to go there, of course. So in short, Dave and I studied together in Australia, and that's how we got to know each other for the last how many years. And because of him, I think I had a very adventurous life in Australia, but let's not go there. We don't have to go there because we've got such a huge topic. So today's topic, Dave, is about the turning point. And what I really appreciated, at least it must have been about 10 years ago, is when you called me one night. And to me, that was like what a massive turning point that was. And I almost thought like, is this one of his stories? Like I mean, he's a fantastic storyteller. And I sometimes would listen to him and at some point think like, am I watching a movie or what? I mean, he's a great storyteller. So on that night, I was thinking, is this one of his other stories, right? So I'm wondering, Dave, can you share that story? Because that to me was quite an amazing story.
Sorry, which index was that story in again? There's so many this particular.
Oh my goodness.
yes.
Okay. You guys are hysterical.
Is it the story that you told the 1,500 guests on my wedding night? Was that?
No, not
Oh
that one.
yes, we were there at your wedding. All right, yes.
No, it was not that one. It was not that one. No, the one where you said something about your inner child. Remember, something had changed for you on that night. Are you ready for that story?
That night.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a deep one, man. That's a really deep one.
Looks like I shocked him with this one. Oh dear.
Yeah. That really was a Tony Robbins pattern interrupt over there.
That's right.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, this happened when I was what? I'm
Probably 12 years ago, maybe.
It was like about 12, 13 years ago, right? And things were not going well for me at all. And you were my coach. I mean, you've been my best friend. You've been my confidant. You know, sounds like you're my girlfriend, huh? You've been a lot of things to me. And I remember that night, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was just sick and tired because nothing was happening in my life. Nothing was working. Business was collapsing. Relationships are breaking. No girlfriend, no boyfriend, no pet, nothing in my life. Yeah. And I remember my mom always used to tell me this. She said, if anything goes wrong in your life, Dave, you have to pray. That's my mom's answer for everything. You know, if you want to lose weight, pray. You want to gain weight, pray. You want to, do better in life, pray. Everything is pray. So I decided to take my mom's advice. And for 6 months, I prayed every day. And until I got so tired, I told God at 5 a.m, I said, what more do you want from me? What do you want me to do, And I screamed it out. And suddenly, in just this flash of lightning just beamed in my head. And it said, open up a kids training academy. And I was like, that's not the answer I was looking for. And it just said it to me again. Open up a kids training academy. And it had nothing to do with kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. In fact, I always thought that I was, when I was growing up, when I was in school, I mean, I was the most outstanding student in my class. You know that, right, Gran? That's
standing
my time standing outside the classroom. So I was thinking to myself, I'm the worst person to open up a kids training academy. I think I'm the last person parents will send to ask for advice for their kids. In fact, parents will say, stay away from that guy. But I realized when I sat down the next morning and I put pen to paper and I said, what would I share? And I realized there are a lot of struggles that I went through in my childhood. I was listening to the introduction just now, you and Marion, what you guys were talking, and how your mom, your dad was always 100% behind you. Your mom was 100% behind you when you wanted to stop work and start your own business. And she said, go for it, right? Wow, how I wish my mother would do that. Because when I went to my mom and said, I want to start my own kids trading company, she goes, why are you doing that? Don't do that. You don't pray hard enough. You pray harder, you'll get a better answer. I'm like, oh man. So my mom has never supported me for anything. Absolutely.
By the way, is she listening in?
She listens to my stories all the time. And That's the most amazing thing, because when I started the academy and I started training kids and parents together, because I believe that a family that learns together stays together, and a family that stays together grows together. My mom started listening to my parenting seminars. And it's very funny because after a couple of years, about 5 years after my seminars, and I went to visit her. She told me, she says, Dave Sodia, I always had the best intentions for you, but I never realized how wrong I was in bringing you up. I always thought by denying you things, I always thought by telling you what's wrong with you, that you would somehow change. I never realized that the important thing was to tell you what's right with you. And I think that was a big game changer, a shift for me, and a shift with my relationship with my mom as well. Because that's so common in Asian families, isn't it? Where, where we criticize 9 times. So we criticize 9 times and we compliment once. But do you know that how the brain works is that it takes nine compliments to offset, to neutralize
Wipe out the one.
criticism. It takes 9 compliments to offset one criticism. And can you imagine if we're criticizing 9 times and we're only giving one compliment? Isn't it any surprise why so many of our kids in Asia, they grow up feeling so demotivated, they grow up feeling shy, insecure, and the parents don't know. It's not, you can't blame the parents because they don't know where they went wrong, because they accidentally did these things to their kids. So that was a huge turning point for me, actually realizing this and putting a program together, not just training the kids, but training the family as a unit.
I think for a lot of Asian parents, that's the way they were brought up. So that's the only way they know how. So unless you can bring them back to the childhood that they went through and to remember what it was like growing up with all the criticism and the negativity, then maybe they'll remember that pain. And when they bring up their own children, it would change, but it doesn't happen that way. We tend to repeat the same cycle. So unless you take a lot of effort to make a change and say, I don't want to be, or I don't want to do what my parents did with me, but that takes a lot of awareness, that takes a lot of effort. And it's so competitive in our societies, right? So no parent wants to give their child less of an edge, for fear that if I don't criticize them, if I don't give them all this crap, right, then they're not going to achieve. So that's the sad mindset that a lot of parents have, right?
Marion, you're right. And the interesting part is that not all Asian parents are like that. I'll give you an example.
Of course.
I've been a student of successful people because I like to study successful people, because as we all know, success leaves clues, right? So I like to find those clues and teach them to kids, teach them to parents. And when I study successful people, I find this in common. I find that every single successful person, successful Asian, okay, let's talk about Asians first. Vincent Tan, a big billionaire in Malaysia. Robert Kwok, a big multi-billionaire, right, in Asia. All these successful men and women, these multi-billionaires, they all had strong mothers. If you really study them, if you read the autobiography, you look at Robert Kwok, for example. Robert Kwok's father was actually a opium addict in the late 1930s, 1940s. But he always said his mother was such a strong woman that has been his pillar, his backbone of support, not only in his childhood days, but in his business days. He would say when he was like 70 years old, the mother would be was like 95 years old, and he would be doing a multi-billion-dollar deal. He'd pick up the phone and he'd call his mother and seek her advice. So very strong relationship with the matriarch in the family. And I noticed this. I noticed in many families where the mother is strong, if a strong, supportive mother, it's very high chance that the child grows up to be very well nurtured. But if the mother tends to be very overly kind or overly strict and doesn't know how to balance it, that's where you find a gap grows between the parent and the child, especially in the teenage years.
So that's interesting. You find that to be consistent with all, like
very consistent. I tell you what else is consistent. Not only that, also families that are united. You look at successful people. You look at many successful African American people. The successful one, Denzel Washington. You look at this. You look at Barack Obama. You look at the very successful people. You find that the relationship they had with their parents was very strong. And especially when both mother and father are together. When the parents separate and the child is living with just either the mom or the dad, it becomes a double. I wouldn't want to say burden, but it becomes even more tough for the mom, for example, to play the role of both mom and dad, especially if you have a dad that's not supportive from the outside. And
Yeah.
so having that united family is vitally, vitally important.
So I've got a question for you. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of questions for you. Now, because you started training also emotional intelligence and so forth, and you having experiences with your mother and your father, and obviously you had some challenges, like all of us who have challenges with our parents, and at the same time many things went right. How did you find the right things to teach to your students in class? Because you have like hundreds of students you handle. At the same time, now you brought in the parents with the students. Where do you get your answers from, and how do you know they work? And I'm putting you to the test, but
No,
it's a
you're
curious question. That's
No,
all.
it's a great question because at the end of the day, it all boils down to emotional intelligence. And what does emotional intelligence say? They always say the same thing: know thyself, right? Seek to understand first before being understood, right? It's a cardinal cornerstone in relationship building. So when I see students and I see parents, the first thing I say is know yourself. When you know yourself and you're clear about yourself, you're clear about what you want in your life, you're clear about your strengths, you're clear about your weaknesses. There's nothing wrong to acknowledge that you have a weakness. Yeah, you could say it's a challenge as well, but a weakness is a weakness. And when you're clear about that and you can work on that weakness, and you're noticing it in another person because you want to communicate with them, and you notice what that other person wants, you have a higher chance of building rapport and connecting. So when I train my students, the first thing is I reveal to them through a series of questions what their personality is like. And I found that we're boiled down to 4 personalities. Some people are very commanding, they're very assertive, they're very confident, they can be very impatient, they're very driven by results, big picture people. Some people are very the opposite of that. They are small picture people. They're very detailed. They're very organized, and they don't like taking risks. They're very prudent, conservative. Some people are very diplomatic. They're very sensitive. They're very in tune with feelings. They're very empathic. They don't like to be rushed, and they're very loyal. And others are very entertaining. They're spontaneous. They have lots of joy. They have lots of creativity. They find it very difficult to complete what they start sometimes, right? Because they're so much in that buzz. So when you find out what area is your personality, then you look at the areas that you're weak in. 80% of my students who come to me, the parents enroll their kids in in their program. They are very high entertainers and they're very low organizers. So what does that mean? That means that they're really great in ideas. They are really great in imagination. They are live wires, but they find it very difficult to focus, difficult to concentrate, difficult to complete what they start, difficult to stick to a plan, very impulsive. So if you go to a child, or if you go to anybody and say, hey, this is your problem, do you know that? What are most people going to do? Most people are going to say, yeah, right, the barrier is going to go up, they're going to reject. But if they can do an assessment and they see it with their own eyes because they're answering the questions themselves and they're like, oh my goodness, this is my area of weakness. Then they come and they ask me when I tell them, did you know that successful people, whether you're a successful basketball player, a successful trainer, a successful doctor, a successful YouTuber, a successful gamer, right? To be successful sportsman in anything, you need to have a certain amount of organization. You need to have a certain amount of structure so you can practice in order to get great in whatever it is you choose to do. And then they look at their score. They look at their score, which is really low in the O, the organizing, for example. And they're like, here's the $1 million question. Coach Dave, how can I increase my O? Now then the gold mine opens and I'm like, okay, let me give you some options. And then we work together.
So, so a lot of parents, are you training mainly more kids or a lot more parents? Because I got a question, and that is, when it comes to parenting styles between, say, the West and the East, is it very different? Do you notice the difference? And of course, I guess in your big ballrooms, you have the Westerners coming in and the Asians coming in, and yeah, what do you see? Is there a difference?
Actually, Gran, not much difference. It is just sometimes we get taken away by the image, the color of the skin, the accent, and and the country they're from. It is not so much I see the Westerners versus the Asians. I see the approach more on the personality of the parent. Let me give you an example. If a parent is a commander, they're very strict, they're very impatient, they want results very, very fast. Okay, that's a strength. Say that's the father. The child, on the other hand, is an entertainer. They are very impulsive. They're very energetic. They don't get, they don't follow, they can't focus, they can't concentrate, they can't get things done. What's going to happen is that you're going to have that parent being very overbearing on that entertainer child, and that the relationship is going to separate. You find it in the West, you find it in the East. I'll give you another example. What happens if the child is a commander, but the parent is a diplomat, whereby the parent is very cool, very calm, very giving, very loving, and that parent is trying to discipline a commander child that's very intense? Who do you think is going to be the boss of the house? It's going to be the child. The child sits on the parent's head, and the parent will be so frustrated, not knowing what to do. You have that in America, you have that in Australia, you have that in Malaysia, you have that in Singapore, you have it all over the world. But when the parent realizes, oh my goodness, yes, that's right, I'm this diplomat, I'm always giving in to my child because my child's a commander, no wonder. So what do I need to do? Maybe I need to be able to increase my assertiveness to deal with another commander child so that they don't take advantage of me.
Good. So at this point, maybe we should ask our audience a question, and that is, what would be the biggest challenge you face with your child? Because since Dave is here, right, SuperCoach Dave is here, maybe that could be something I think they want some answers for, right? Because let's put it this way, when I look back, I think my parents would have wanted tons of answers, but what did they have compared to parents nowadays, right? Nowadays, they got courses, they got internet, they got the library. Before, what did our parents have? Zilch.
They had experience from their own parents,
That's
right? And many times I think there's no real handbook that can give you all the answers, because every family is made up of so many different permutations, right? I mean, I look at my family, you know, it just happened to be that there's an absent father, but I don't think it makes us less of a family because we have very involved grandparents, aunties, and uncles. So, you know, it takes a village to bring up a child, you know, and I think that, in my family, it was so important that we all respect each other. It doesn't mean that because you're the parent, you know everything, and because you're the child, you just follow. I think it was very much about open styles of communication, you know, recognizing each other's strengths, recognizing our weaknesses, exactly what you said, and being able to have the courage to apologize when you do something wrong, and yet have the ability to let go of the need to control everything. Right. So, you know, just because I'm the mom doesn't mean I know everything. And I would never tell my parents, you couldn't do that as grandparents, or even like my siblings. Right. So I think it's a big combination of everybody working towards a common goal, so to speak. Right. And with lots of love and lots of good intention. But you need to open the channel of communication. Otherwise, when there's all these expectations, I think a lot of parents face that. Before we even open it up to the chat group, a lot of people did ask me one thing, you know, and I guess, Dave, you could also talk about that. Like, you know, I mean, I can share from my experience, but let's hear from you. I want my child to do well, but my child doesn't want to study. And that's the common thing. And especially with COVID-19, you know, and the kids are studying online, it's difficult, right? How do you actually get them to do things? And so they say, you know, I must have my child study. They're not in school. They're going to be missing out, etc. So maybe you could give a little bit of advice about how would they handle their children now with COVID-19, and for those who are unable to send their kids back to school, you know, and they're doing online learning. Yeah.
You know, first of all, Marion, I got to say one thing. You are a shooting star. And I'll tell you why. 1 in a million shooting star. Because you're so right. It's all down to communication, and saying sorry and apologizing. How many parents are willing to do that? How many, especially Asian parents, are willing to say that, you know what, son, you know what, my dear, I'm sorry for behaving the way that I did. You know why they don't do that, or they find it very difficult? Because they think that apologize is just one-dimensional. If I apologize for something, means I'm apologizing for everything. No,
exactly. They think it's a weakness, or they feel that you will lose the respect of your children. Absolutely. You know, which is so wrong.
But it's such a paradox. Absolutely. But
yeah, absolutely.
Gain the respect of the child, and so that's why I always tell my parents, when I say my parents, the 35,000 parents that I have, I've got naughty parents, and the parents of my students, and I say this, man, I say, you know what? Stop being a parent. It's no big deal being a parent. Anyone can be a parent. Just a man makes a woman pregnant, she gives birth, your parents, no big deal. What's important is be a coach. And many parents out there are actually coaches and they don't know they're actually coaching their kids. And what is coaching your kids? Asking them questions, finding out what's inside of them, becoming their tag team partner rather than becoming the Hitler, the disciplinarian, and the person who's the enemy. Come together. How do you do that? First thing is, you can do it by looking for closure. There's so much wounds inside kids today. There's so many wounds that the parents don't know they've actually inflicted on their kids. Accidentally. No parent does it purposely. They accidentally do it. You know, as Tony Robbins said, you're sincere, but you can be sincerely wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing a parent can do is this, if you want to start the ball rolling, if you want your kids to start hearing you, listening to you, and connecting with you, the first thing is this. Go to your son, go to your daughter today, or to whenever you hear this, make sure that they are comfortable, they're relaxed. Maybe they're just watching TV, they're chilled out, they've not got a scolding or a nagging, or they've not, their nervous system is not overloaded, right? They're just relaxed. And you look at them and you just say this, give them one compliment, give them a specific compliment. No matter how horrible you think your child is, how badly behaved they are, there's still one thing that they are worth complimenting for, right? There's always one. There's one, you know.
Always,
so, be naughty, you can look at that. Wow, you know, I look at you, darling. You know, you're so full of energy, right? And you're like this energy bunny, and you're bouncing around. And I just want to tell you, I'm so inspired by that, because sometimes when I feel down and I feel tired, I think of you and my energy goes up as well. Hey, that's a compliment, right? So imagine a parent gives that compliment to the child, number one, and then say...
But I'm going to stop you here. Wait, Dave. I'm also going to remind parents, do it without an agenda and be sincere. Because you know what? Your kids are going to... They know you well. You live in the same house. If you're doing it with an agenda, in the long run, it's just going to fall flat on your face.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
The other one...
Here's the thing. So there is an agenda. The agenda here is that I want to show to my child that I'm genuinely interested in them, right? Yeah. So step one, just go out, just give that quick compliment. It'll take you 10 seconds, and then ask them this question. Say, darling, has mommy, if it's mom talking, right? Has mommy ever done something or said something to you in the past or recently that has hurt you or that has upset you? And say that in a genuine way, right?
Yeah.
And tell them this and say, you know, and I just want to tell you, I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to nag you or scold you. I genuinely would like to know if I've done anything that has hurt you or upset you in the past.
Just one thing before you carry on, because I mean, this is a wonderful thing to be able to do. Now, do you have stepping stones to be able to do that? Because I mean, for a parent to do something like that when they've never done it before, and that's vulnerability, right? You're being vulnerable to a child. Do you have some kind of stepping stones, or do you tell parents, you know what, you need to jump into the deep blue sea, take a risk, and just go forth and ask your children? Yeah,
this is what I've noticed in the parents. It depends on you got to jump in, right? It's just like asking a girl for a date, asking a boy for a date or whatever. You got to risk rejection. That's life, right? There's a little risk over there, but you want to take a calculated risk, right?
Exactly.
So what we do? So you look at your trust account, your love account. Now, if the trust account, that you have a very big trust account with your kid, obviously, because you love them, right? The love account. But is it similar back? Now, when you ask this question to your child, just jump in and say, genuine compliment, nothing wrong in complimenting, is wonderful. We all love compliments. And then asking that question, have I done anything to hurt you or upset you in the past? Now, if the child's trust account with you is low, chances are they will not give you an answer. Chances are they say, no, mom, everything is fine. You've done nothing. Why? Because they don't want you to nag them. They don't want you to scold them. They don't want you to...
Because they don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. So this happens sometimes. So then you say, oh, okay, fine. So then you tell this to your child. Well, if anything ever comes up, please let me know. And that's it. And conversation over. Very quick conversation over, and I get back to your own thing. Couple of days later, ask them the same question again. This is what I found. No matter how bad the relationship is between the parent and the child, by the time the fourth time they ask this question, the child will open up and say one thing.
That's right. You have to have some thick skin there.
You said this thing to me and it really hurt me because you took it away, whatever. Here's the thing. When you answer them back, Do not defend
Be
yourself.
defensive, yeah.
Not defend yourself, just cover. I'm a talkative guy. I know I got to shut up so many times. So I take my hand, I put my fist around my mouth like this to remind myself I had to keep quiet, right? That's for me. So if you feel like you want to tell, you justify it to your child, just listen.
Listen, exactly.
Right? And when they've finished talking, you look at them and say, I'm sorry I made you feel that way.
That's right.
I did not know that you would feel that way. Can you please forgive me for this? That's all you got to do.
Exactly. And that's such wonderful advice, Dave. Yeah.
You do that, you're going to have a big hug.
So did your mama and papa do
Okay.
that? You better take them. No, that's really a good tip. Wonderful piece of advice.
We do this between couples, mothers and fathers. Mothers ask me, Coach Dave, can I do this with my husband? I said,
of course, exactly. You can do it with your own parents, your own kids, your spouse. Exactly.
Your wife does it with the husband, and guess what? I just had this training recently in Tel Aviv because we're doing a Zoom, right? So one of the moms told me this. She says, I told it to my husband, and my husband looked at me and broke down and cried.
Yeah, and wonderful job.
Organization. He says, I never thought you'll ever ask me this. And he just unloaded. How many times are we walking around like icebergs, having a up there and all the heaviness between us?
You're doing an amazing job, Dave. Now we have to
pause. Dave. We have to pause.
We have to pause, but let's see any questions coming up for Dave, and then we'll just.
No, there are no questions here. No, so far there haven't been any questions. Just the one about the COVID, what they could do. But I think that advice that you gave are baby steps. Again, remember that I would say to parents, you have to have a bit of thick skin and keep trying and keep trying. Eventually you will break through because the child will feel the love and the intention that you want to make amends.
Yeah.
So
you're
that's great.
You're talking about COVID, right? This is the best time to reconnect with your kids.
Totally, I agree. Yes.
But the problem that parents are having is that they don't know how.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the way is to do what
Dave, I'm sorry, we just got to stop you for a little while. You've got so much wonderful advice, and I think parents would love to hear, and our listeners would love to hear for that. You have your website, or you've got certain things that you might just want to share and maybe put it on our chat group, on the Facebook chat group, so that at least they know they have a bit of a link to get to, so that they can just find out more and then they can get in touch with you. Yeah, because
to tell us about, right? Is that something you want to offer?
Yeah, sure. We have a free course, and it's a live course. It's a free live course where parents from all over the world. That's the amazing thing about COVID, right? I mean, before COVID, I did live seminars only in the city I was in, and after COVID, everything collapsed, and we turned to technology. And now, I'm in Malaysia, you're in Singapore, and we have like 200 parents from all over the world logging in. So it's a free live session, and it's a Ask Me Anything session where I share with parents what is the personality of their kids. I share that with them. What is the personality of the parents themselves, and how to use that to connect and build a deeper relationship with their kids. And I give techniques. I give live coaching, a live Q&A where they can come on, and there'll be a parent from Gibraltar who will say, I'm having this challenge with my son. He's 16 years old, and she'll share the challenge. And I do a live coaching with the parent, and all the other parents can watch the coaching between me and that parent. So that's something that many parents like to learn how they can have the deeper connection with their kids.
Nice. That sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to go for that if my kids were young. That sounds so it's a free course for them, Dave?
It's a free live course, in fact.
Wow, that's so amazing. So generous of you. I think our viewers would totally appreciate it, so we can put that in the chat so that they will know where to get to the link, etc. Wow.
Yeah. And if they want to see you in action, like what, do you have a Facebook group? Because I mean, you've dished out some really interesting tips down here.
And your YouTube channel, yeah.
Yes. So what we do is we have a Facebook group, and that Facebook group are for the parents who have gone through that free course. When they go through that free course, they have that foundation. So when they come into the community of parents who have gone through it, then they share using these techniques on their kids, and they say, you know what, it didn't work. And another parent, where it worked on, will say, why don't you try it this way? And everyone uses it, and they motivate each other instead of just this guy coming in and, giving his 2 cents worth. 200 heads is better than one. So that community is once the parents come in and go through the free course, they become
Yeah.
members of the community, and that's where they'll be able to.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Excellent.
that's such a good idea. Wow, sounds lovely.
Wow.
Thanks, Marion.
I must admit, from the time I knew you to what you're doing now, I would have never known Dave will be teaching parents what to do. Seriously, I'm proud of you.
My parents, I'm very close to my mom and my dad. My parents did a lot of things wrong, but they did many things right.
Right.
So when I decided to stop looking at the wrong and start looking at the right, I said, how many parents out there are doing the same? What if I could use my experience and bring and help these parents with their kids so that they don't have to go through the same challenges that we went through when we were kids?
That's nice.
That's
Wow.
really nice.
That was
I think your turning point has been clear for you. You've got a great passion and purpose. You know what you need. You've got this wonderful gift that you can do, Dave. So keep it up. I love having you in our community. You're always such a great energy there and always so generous with your advice and your experience, and yet this humbleness and this willingness to learn that I totally appreciate. So I'm glad to have you in my life. And thank you for that sharing.
You're welcome. And I just want to share one more thing before we
Sure.
leave. One of the big things that really turned it around for me and that I use, which is the cornerstone of my program, is when I attended Grant's Emotional Intelligence certification, the 5 days. And that really,
that was before Marion came to the picture. That was like what, 2000 and
6
what?
seconds.
I think that was when Marion was still Miss Singapore reigning.
You're that old? Okay, gentleman.
No, honestly,
I'm forever Miss Singapore reigning. Excuse me. It hasn't ended.
I know it's a lifelong reign, right? Yeah. But seriously, it's like when we did the video recorder activity where we had to put a video recorder on our live to recognize our patterns. I mean, when that came out, I was like, oh my goodness, how many wrong patterns have been programmed in my brain? I need to break them down and reprogram them back again. And that made a huge shift in my life. Honestly, emotions run everything. Emotions run everything. They are the vibration that causes our manifestation of what we're doing in our life, and so powerful.
And you've done the work, so you deserve to be where you are. Excellento. Really proud of you, and thanks so much for joining us today and dishing out so many tips for our viewers and even myself. Of course, not a parent, but anyway, it's still very
You're
relevant.
godparent.
That's one thing you gotta be, Dr. Granville D'Souza. You've done most of the things you've gone through in life. You gotta anyway,
Never too late, huh? Never too late. All right. We'll talk about that another day. Okay. So much.
We'd love to have you another time.
And your lovely wife Amrit and your lovely daughter as well. We wish we could have them. Maybe one, another session with the family session. We could have the three of you there. But we have to let you go right now so that we can summarize and talk about bitch behind your back. No, actually, talk about what you said. Talk about what you said.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks,
Dave. Don't forget to add the links in the comments.
Sure. We'll
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Take care, Dave. We use this.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Just chat about some stuff. Right. So that was a really lively session. I must admit, Dave has always been somebody who's well-read, and I think more than just being well-read, he's somebody who's got tons of life experiences.
Exactly.
Both naughty ones and good ones and active ones and business ones, and such a storyteller.
But I must say that I think like over COVID-19, with us having to be at home or with the lockdown or, having to work from home, stay-at-home notices, etc., it was a challenge for a lot of families, with our hotline and supporting parents and spouses, individuals. There's been so much anxiety that's been going on, and this is where the EQ definitely comes in, and the ability to build that resilience. And it's so funny because it's such a simple question sometimes to ask, but so many people find it so difficult. Just asking them, what are they feeling? Do they know why they're feeling that way, and what can they do to change that, right? And I believe that even you and I, we posted quite a few things of giving people simple steps of how to manage the household, like giving each other space and so many things. So it's always a learning journey for all parents. But I would say the most important thing is that at the end of the day, know that you're coming from a space of love, that anything that your child says, I hate you, I don't love you, I don't want to live with you anymore. It's just that moment of frustration that is coming out. but don't retaliate and find a way to work through it, because it's the emotions that's really driving so much of that conflict, because they're not working on them. Yeah.
It's quite interesting what Dave has managed to put together, because if I look at it, parents need a lot of help. But
Yeah.
what I'm also finding, at least he's managed to change it, that a lot of parents, although they need a lot of help, they don't seem to go out there to get that help, and they suffer in silence, right? They believe that some of the answers will come, or they hope some things will turn out right, or they hope by accident their children will change. So I'm finding, like, even in our classes, people will come to me on the side and ask me questions about their parenting, but they'll never want to talk about it too much in the public space, even though almost everyone in the class is a parent and many are struggling. So, it's
Well,
not an
change
easy
is never
topic.
easy, Gran. Change is never easy.
course.
And I mean, if I think about, initially when I started to work on myself and try to change some of my behaviors towards my kids, because I did see at some point our relationships weren't so good. And, when you're met with the suspicion, like, okay, mom, what do you want from me? Have I done something really bad that you have an agenda? And imagine a 9 or 10-year-old speaking to you this way. It's quite earth-shattering, right? Or similar, having the child say that they hate you and they never want to, or they want to die because they hate being born to the family, and it's difficult for the parents. So, their fear of what happens if I stir up, why don't just leave it as it is? Because if I stir it up and I try to dig a bit deeper and go into the hurts and wounds, there's no guarantee that it will work out well, right? So there's so much fear there. And many times that fear is crippling people. They have to find a way to face it, and things will get difficult, things will get harder, but it will always get better. And if you don't believe that, if you don't have the faith that things will turn out well, then people won't want to make that change. Yeah.
And I also always imagine when a parent could be hurt as a result of what a child might have said. So, for example, I hate you. You have done this, and why were you my father in the first place? And imagine if a father or mother does not know how to manage those emotions and tell themselves, okay, hold on, this child is obviously hurt. Let me let it go, or let me hold on and address it later. So if they react and they, as human beings, hold it there and they keep it, and then they take and they lash it out, and the next day and the next week, and they never quite forgive. Can you imagine what happens to that child? And can you imagine what happens to that relationship and that dynamic?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
an unending story, right? Domino effect as well. So it's not.
Yeah.
Can imagine how difficult it is to be a parent.
And we've coached families, right? And, it's not a one session. A lot of people want band-aids or a quick fix. They think that, okay, if I just do one little thing, like say, I'm sorry, everything will be fine. But it's a little bit more work than that, right? So I think people are looking for quick fixes. They don't really want to put in the work, or the usual thing, we're too busy. The excuse that we get all the time, my career is more important, earning money is more important, right? But at the end of the day, like, what is truly going to bring that happiness, and how do you really define the success, right? So I think at the same time, there are so many very, very good parents out there, and like Dave, and those who teach it, even our Indonesian partners, they do parenting courses, right? I think there's so many of us who are trying to make a little bit of difference in the world, and even with our US partners, our Japanese partners, in India too. So I think together we will make that difference. So we just hope that today's session has been good for people who've been listening in, right? Again, we have our EQ programs, we have our resilience programs. And of course, at any point we are there as coaches, we're there as friends. So I believe that people can always feel that there's someone to turn to, and not feel hopeless or feel like I have no choice, or I don't get a second chance, and they give up on themselves. And that's sad.
Yeah. Well, I like the part which Dave talked about vulnerability. I just want to bring that up, because I just feel sometimes if a parent feels they've never been able to get through their children, and they don't know how to make that small little recovery, it's never too late. Even, for example, when during our classes, some people say, and I'm already 60, my child's about 40 something, it's already too late. And I think it's never too late. Sometimes our children just need to see that there is still love, or there is a lot of love, but although you've never shown it, it's because maybe that's your upbringing. But so one small simple sentence, and that's to ask them a question. Just finally ask them a question, how's your day, or bring up something from the past. It's okay. It's not raking up rubbish from the past.
No. But allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
and
Yeah.
allowing yourself to be sorry for something that you've done in the past.
Of
That could be one of
course.
the most
Yeah.
biggest gifts you can give your child if supposing you think tensions have gone to its max
And
extent.
again, it's never easy when our pride and ego gets in the way. So that causes us to have those expectations and wanting to control everything, right? So until we're able to work on ourselves as a start, let go of some of those. And again, that's the journey that we're on to help other people, and give everyone that hope that we can make our lives so much better. So
That's right,
yes.
Super Mummy.
You're not super mummy at all. I learned a lot of hard ways,
Right.
but I'm always appreciative to all the support that I've always had from the extended family.
Yeah, you've had
And,
wonderful
and our
parents.
faith has kept us very grounded. The faith has always helped,
That's great.
Yeah. All
Well,
right. So it is 9
Any
o'clock.
last minute questions, thoughts from anyone? Or today people have been
Uh,
quite quiet on this topic, or they are
Yeah.
thinking about their
Okay.
own
Well,
parenting styles.
Andrea is here saying super resource for parents. Hi, Andrea. Oh, Mark's here too. Thank you, Dave. Wonderful sharing and giving back.
Woken up from the
Yes.
US. 7
Okay.
a.m.
Yes.
It'll be 8 a.m. in Oklahoma.
So
That's
thanks, our viewers, and your comments and your likes. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for coming in and watching us. And thanks so much, Dave, Super Coach, for sharing.
Yes, SuperCoach Dave.
And best of wishes to your program and the academy and your wife and family.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay.
We will plan what happens next week and we'll let you know
Yes.
as the week unfolds.
As we say, till we meet again.
Right.
All right. So good night, everyone. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Right. Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.